Hi everyone, welcome to another video on my YouTube channel. My name is Julie-Anne and on this channel I do pick a card videos at new and full moons, but I also do astrology. So I'm actually a professional astrologer and a certified angel card reader, and I do astrology readings as well as tarot readings. And this time around I wanted to do some astrology. So as most of you know, I took kind of a long hiatus and I just released a pick a card video in the last new slash full moon. Hold on one quick second. What I'm doing, what's happening, like clockwork. Once I start a video or something, Monty always has a need and he takes priority. But anyway, so yeah, so I did a pick a card video for the last, it was a full moon in Scorpio. It was very, very powerful. So if you have not seen that video, please go back and rewatch that. All those videos are timeless because energy does not have time and space. And it was on what are you releasing? And this particular new moon cycle, so technically the moon is now in Gemini, it's already moved into Gemini, but whenever we have a new or full moon, it enacts a cycle that lasts for 2 weeks. So we will be in this cycle for the next 2 weeks. So I'm actually going to read the chart for this new moon, and this is applicable within this 2-week lunar cycle. I also will be doing an extended on this. I'm still slightly deciding what I'm going to do. The extended is either going to be a chart reading of the next lunar cycle, which would be the full moon that would be in the beginning of June, or it's going to be a pick a card related to the energy of this. I may kind of figure this out as I go along with this video, but whatever it is, you will find the extended version of whatever I create in the description of this video. So definitely make sure you check it out there. Speaking of which, please make sure that you subscribe to this video, give it a like, drop some love in the comments. All of these things really help feed the YouTube algorithm, which is so important for small content creators like myself. And it's just a really sad fact that like more than 50% of people watch videos but don't subscribe, and it's totally free to subscribe. So there's like no excuse. I get if it's like your very first time, like you're kind of testing out the waters, totally cool. But if you're kind of like repetitively watching videos and you're enjoying my content, please give this channel a subscribe, give it a like. These are very small things that you can do at no cost to you, which actually do help support the channel. And I would encourage other people to do that for other content creators, not just myself. This is like a baseline rule that helps everyone. I know for myself, like when I'm watching content on YouTube, which I do a lot, I actually just consciously like the video right away at the beginning, just to kind of give back in a way. And if I'm not subscribed, subscribe or whatever it might be. And yeah, so that's what I want to say there. Excuse me. I will be also relaunching my Patreon soon. I will be relaunching my Patreon soon, where I'll have some different tiers there. And, you know, those of you that have been following me for a while, you know that I had my Fearlessly Fairy tier, my Astro Fairy tier, my All-Inclusive Fairy tiers, Give Back Fairy tiers. I'm kind of taking a second look at this and redesigning it a little bit. So, hold on one quick second again. So, yeah, so I'm redesigning my Patreon tiers, and keep an eye out for that. Do make sure you're also, if you're really enjoying my content and you want to be kept up to date, when these videos go out as soon as possible, you can hit the notification bell. That will alert you when I make a new video. Also, I am publishing these videos, you know, notifying people in my email newsletter list, and you can join that. It's at julieannfae.com. When you go into my site, there's a pop-up and you can sign up for my email newsletter, or in the header and footer of the website, you can click and it will actually bring you to an anchor on the site, which will give you the ability to type in your name and email and confirm that you're a human. And there should also be a link to that in the description of this video. So I think that's like all the housekeeping stuff I want to mention there. I want to start with just a couple card pulls. This is actually not a pick a card video. This is going to be an astrology video, but I did just want to do a couple card pulls just to kind of get us started. And I'll just say in general, There's definitely a lot of intensity in the energy right now. Like I went full out with like black eyeliner. You can't really see it because when I'm on camera, it gets like really washed out. But I was just in a black eyeliner mood, which does not happen to me a lot, to be honest. And I realized while doing it that I'm actually very out of practice. So I need to actually practice more, but I think it came out pretty good. Um, but yeah, we have this new moon in Taurus, and it's actually conjunct the fixed star Algol, which is a really, really intense fixed star in astrology. I'm going to talk about this more when I go over the chart, but this can carry a lot of Kundalini energy and like very intense power and control vibes. We also have Mars finishing up in Cancer, and it's going to be in an opposition to Pluto. This has been building though all week, to be honest, so you've probably been already feeling this energy. It's just that now it's exact. And to be honest, this isn't going to let up very easily because we do have Pluto at 0 degrees of Aquarius, and then we also have Jupiter that moved into Taurus at 0 degrees. So we have a lot of fixed sign energy, right? Taurus, Aquarius, and Leo, which tends to like hold the energy and not give it up. So this can be very good if you're working on a particular project or you're trying to motivate yourself to do something. You can have this really fixed container of energy to get it done and have that focus. Not so good if you're kind of in a holding pattern with something which you do want shifting or changing. We typically want mutable energy, which would be Gemini, Virgo, Pisces, Sagittarius, to get into more of that kind of flexibility and changing energy. The mutable signs, I'm like super mutable. We change pretty fast. So we tend to like, I've always said like I can have 3 different days in one day, or like if I'm working through something, I'm already over it by the next day. So um, it's a generalization because of course we have all different energies in our chart. So you're not going to be completely just like that. But yeah, so anyway, so let's start with a couple card pulls. I'm going to use the Moon Witch Oracle cards by, who is this by? I should know who this is by because I've used it before. Okay, so this is by Cosmic Valeria. I don't know if you guys can see that, but Moon Witch Oracle cards by Cosmic Valeria. So I'm going to pull from these. They're really, really beautiful cards. I don't work with these all the time, but when I do, they're always so gorgeous. Let me just kind of confirm that we're all up right here in these cards. So just fun teachable moment tip. I always reset my decks. This is a little bit of something up for debate. Not all card readers do this. Personally, though, I think because I come from more of like a science and math background, I want to reset the deck so I have very clear understanding that the probabilities that come through have been reset, right? So if a card comes up reversed, I know it's significant that it's come up reversed because I had reset it so that they were all upright, if that makes sense. And even if we think about like studies and stuff, we have like significance actually becomes like a really important thing when we do studies, confidence intervals, all kinds of crazy stuff. So it is actually a good practice to do stuff like that. Okay, so we have that, or at least in my opinion. I'm not saying my opinion is the only true opinion of the world of card reading, but for me personally, that's what resonates with me. So I always do make sure that I reset my decks. This is another deck that I'm working with called Wild Wisdom of the Fairy Oracle by Lucy Cavendish. And this is actually a deck that I kind of refurbed. I was inspired by my healer mentor friend Josie, who started doing this. So I actually did this with this deck where I kind of cut it down to a smaller size and then I edged the deck, which in this case, you can't really see too well, but it's kind of like this pinky color. And it wasn't always like that. So let me just finish resetting this. I will say too, Lucy Cavendish, the decks that she makes, she's a really, really great priestess oracle deck maker that you can follow and purchase decks from, who really does specialize a lot more in like fae and mermaid energy. So if you're into that, she's a great resource for that. And she also has some really great books. She has one, maybe as I'm talking about it, I'm being reminded I need to go back and revisit this book, but she has this really, really long book called the Lost Lands, and it's all about Atlantis and Lemuria and what it was like energetically, the gifts that people had during that time, spiritually, a lot about what happened. It's really, really powerful stuff. So she's also a great author, spiritual author to follow as well. So let's just get a message that we most need to see, hear, feel, and understand right now as it relates to the current energies. So what do we as the collective that's watching this video need to see, hear, feel, and understand as it relates to this current energy? Okay, so this one wants to come out. Sun, find a balance. Beautiful card. I told you guys these cards are so amazing. Find a balance. Let's see what comes through with the other deck here before I go further. So we have snail's pace, slow down, grounding, listen for the heartbeat of the earth, subtle energies. And then I'm actually going to pull just two more just to kind of round this out. I lied. I'm going to pull three more. Again, this is not a pick a card video, but I think what I may end up doing, what I'm kind of leaning into, is doing more of a pick a card video as the extended options. So that is a way you can go over to my Etsy shop and purchase that. And of course, you'll be supporting my channel and you'll be getting access to a pick a card video. Once I also relaunch the Patreon, that'll be another way you can help me and others supporting the channel, because those that help keep this channel alive help me make more videos for everyone to benefit from. Okay, so we have Blue Moon, you are ready, make your masterpiece. But this actually follows, and it's interesting because that to me looks like a full moon, and this is actually a new moon we're in. So there could be something that's culminating here within like 2 weeks at the time we get to the full moon. But we have Snail's Pace, we have Silver Sisters, take time to protect from toxic thoughts and energy. It's really interesting too, because this is like a very Gemini kind of card. And then we have Shimmer, Glamour, Confidence, Allure, and Charisma. So what I'm kind of getting from this is that this lunar cycle, there's partially this energy of really slowing down and getting into the element of Taurus, which is an earth element, and it's also fixed earth, right? So it likes to take its time. Taurus is like the cow on the pasture that's like chewing the grass. And I always like to envision like Taurus vibes as like the man that's like in his armchair, like with a glass of wine and like a fire, and he's just like enjoying the luxuries of life in his like very contented home. Obviously you can also do the feminine version of that. It could certainly be a woman in that scene as well. And with the energy of Taurus, it is a slow moving energy. I'll be honest, like, the moon is in Gemini now, but it was like the past couple days it's been in Taurus, and I love me some Taurus energy. I really love Taurus and Scorpio energy a lot because it's my first and seventh house axis in my chart. But there is such a thing as too much of a good thing. And you can definitely have too much Taurus energy. And I think we were kind of going through that the past couple days where it's like it's so slow moving. There's so much just like fixed earth that there's really not a lot that's like shifting and changing. It can be, dare I say, but a bit too much of like a lazy energy. So I think you know where you're at, in that if you have been feeling more sluggish, this might be like a call to action to try to bring in a little bit more fire and passion. Like even tonight, recording this video, like earlier today, I was just feeling really like lethargic and just didn't want to do anything. And I was like, well, I know that recording this video, doing my spiritual work is something that I'm very passionate about. So it brings in that more of that energized vibe, right? So you might be on that side of the equation where it's like you need to bring in more passion and more energetic spark because you might be a little bit too lethargic. Or on the flip side, maybe you've been just like really energized lately, you've had some really intense stuff going on, or really just a lot that you need to practice slowing down, you know? So I see this find a balance as like with this Taurus energy, find a way to bring in those comforts. And Taurus has the ability to enjoy life and take it easy and relax, but it also has the ability to apply oneself to a task, to work hard because it is an earth sign, and to follow it through. Okay. Now, with this other energy here, I'm kind of getting the vibe that this is about some of the other stuff that's going on in the astro with like the opposition of Pluto and the squares from like Jupiter to Pluto and stuff like that, where there could be a little bit of, what's a good word, subversive energy. Just people maybe having like an unspoken agenda, or a little bit of like a duplicity energy, maybe is a better word, right? Because we have kind of like the energy of two people here. So it's like, this could be like gossip. This could be somebody saying something verbally, but like energetically, you feel like that's not the truth. And just this kind of undercurrent of like, there's more to this story and I'm not getting all the information, you know? Now, I'll be honest, that goes both ways, because that plutonic energy, which is kind of what I'm getting here from this, can work also as you being the one that puts that out, right? So like people that have really strong Pluto energy in their chart, or even just like, I don't want to say in general Scorpio, but just we'll just kind of take the energy of Pluto itself, can definitely give you this like in-depth X-ray quality where you can read people and read their energies. Like for example, I have Pluto in my first house. So whether I like it or not, like I read people's energy at like a really deep level. And then my moon's in Libra, so it's kind of like a lie detector kind of moon. Um, if somebody's kind of not telling me the full story, I typically can feel it and try to ask them for more. But along with that plutonic energy, there can also come a little bit of like, because you're so tuned in to everything, even like kind of what's like hidden, there can also be a little bit of like paranoia and seeing and feeling things at a deep level that can sometimes make you feel uncomfortable, right? So I would just encourage you also with this like find a balance, be mindful of like, am I the one that's contributing to this intensity, or am I the one that's on the receiving end of it? And to try to just monitor like, am I putting this energy into this dynamic, or am I receiving this energy? And from that, decide, okay, what's the medicine I need to work, right? So if you're the one that's kind of putting that energy in, that means you're too much in that plutonic, too much in that Scorpio energy, and you need to go back into some Taurus energy, which is like make a yummy meal, go out into nature, work with essential oils, really just kind of get back into your senses, get grounded, get back into your senses. Now, if you feel like you're on the receiving end of some of this like gossip or sinister energy, that is a good time for you to actually tap into that Scorpio vibe and like shield up. Okay. So there's lots of different shields you can visualize over yourself. I'm not going to go into them. Like I've literally taken whole courses on this. But you can just, maybe at some point I may even write a blog post on some basic shielding techniques, but you might need to do a bit more shielding, work with more protective crystals. Protective crystals would be like any darker, denser crystals, right? So black, brown, even like your smoky grays. So like smoky quartz, black tourmaline, black obsidian, jet, all of these types of crystals. Labradorite is a beautiful one as well, although labradorite works also to manifest. So it's a good one to work with at the new moon, which we're in now. Other ones would be, I don't know if I said black obsidian. Personally, I really like golden sheen obsidian. This is actually golden sheen obsidian. If you see it, actually has like this yellow flash. And I love golden sheen obsidian, one, because it's really cool. But two, because it works with for protection and grounding, but it also works with the solar plexus chakra because it has that goldeny yellow component to it. So it's a nice one for kind of double dipping, I guess you could say. But yeah, so there's a bit of that going on. And then I think with this blue moon, you are ready, make your masterpiece. I see this as like by the time we get to the next lunar cycle, which would be the full moon, um, you might feel like you're achieving a certain sense of completion about something that's been bothering you, or even just an up leveling of your confidence about something is kind of the vibe that I'm getting there. Okay. So I'm going to pause here with the cards. I will do a lot more with cards. I think I've decided now. I will do a lot more with cards in a pick a card video, which I'm going to put for sale on my Etsy shop. So if you're interested in getting that, please make sure to check in the pin comment or in the description of this video and you can see how to access that, okay? So with that being said, let's get into the chart here. And I just want to pull up one more tab. So let's get into this chart. And this new moon, so like I said, it was exact earlier today, okay, close to noon on Friday, May 19th. We can see that here, okay? And we have this ad. Let's me close it out. I don't think so. No good there. Okay, so right around noon, we have this new moon chart. Okay, so right away we can see that the sun and moon are conjunct at the end of Taurus. Anytime it's a new moon, it's when the sun and moon are together. A full moon is when the sun and moon are apart. They're in opposite sides in opposition to each other. The fixed star Algol is that it's not plotted here, but it's at 26 degrees, 25, 26 degrees of Taurus. So this moon is very, very much in aspect. And like I said, even though this was exact earlier today, it still lasts for like 2 weeks of the lunar cycle that you're going through this energy, okay? And in fact, can I click on you and possibly pop you out without an ad? Yes, I can. Okay, so let's do that. So we have the moon here within a 2-degree orb to fixed star Algol. We also have the sun within a fixed star, the sun within a 2-degree orb to fixed star Algol. So Algol is a fixed star that carries a pretty bad reputation. It's actually a star that I'm pretty sure I have a whole blog post on it. I'll check on that. If I do have a blog post already written on it, I will put that in the description and the pinned comment. Because this is actually a fixed star that I've like studied and tracked quite a lot. And I've learned about it myself. I've also tracked it through like different celebrity charts and like there's so much I could say about Algol. Okay. But essentially, in ancient times, it carried this really, really bad reputation where, to be honest, it was associated with like beheading and some pretty, pretty intense stuff. Modern day astrology, we kind of equate it with like losing your head. Okay. So mentally kind of losing yourself, okay? But because this is the energy at the end of Taurus, it carries this caution about lust and greed and overuse, over manipulation of resources. And you can actually, it's really interesting because as you track this fixed star in different people's charts, you can actually see how this manifests in different ways in people's charts where it presents itself. Like this week I'm just debating if I want to share this whole story or not. I'm going to let it go and see if it comes back. If it comes back, then I'll know I'm meant to share it. But this fixed star Algol is one where I like to consider it a Kundalini point. It's like a point of activation where you can use the energy. You can use the energy for good or effectively for bad, right? So it's sort of like a point in the zodiac where we have this ability to tap into very immense power. And we can use that just like we can use creative sexual energy for tremendous good. We can also use it in a way that's sinister or potentially toxic or manipulative, right? And yeah, so think of it like a Kundalini point where energy is being accessed that has the ability to be tapped and go at a much deeper level. But it's sort of up to the individual about using those resources, using those energetic resources wisely and practically and in a way that's appropriate, right? So there's kind of like this added, with great power comes great responsibility kind of vibe to fixed star Algol. And I think that people often at the beginning of working with this energy, they don't really know themselves very well and they have this tremendous powerful energy, but they're not understanding how to wield it or how to use it. They have to learn how to use it appropriately. And some people may not learn that depending on how great and intense the acts are that they do with this power. But some people may. They may evolve and kind of grow and learn how to use it more effectively. And there's also kind of a whole added mythological component, and I have to credit Rick Levine, who's a great astrologer that I follow for this. But he talks about how Algol is actually linked to Medusa, and that if you imagine kind of like this energy with like a woman with like all these snakes, you know, kind of like slithering in her head and everything, but there's a whole backstory there that the woman that was turned into Medusa was actually like sexually assaulted. Like there's a whole backstory there. So it's a whole story. I'm not going to get into it. A whole mythological story. But essentially, it's kind of this energy of like divine feminine power that's very intense and can be at times fear inducing, but can also be used in a way that can generate a lot of energy and also be used for a lot of good. Okay. I could get more into stuff about Algol, but I'm kind of gonna leave it there just for now. But needless to say, this point with this new moon at the end of Taurus presents this really like Kundalini activating point where there could be a lot of destructive energy that gets turned up, or there could be a lot of powerful energy, right? So it's kind of up to you how you want to use it. And of course, know your own chart, know what's in your chart. If you don't know your chart, you know, obviously it's always helpful to work with someone that can help you. Like I do chart readings professionally, so I can help people understand their chart. And, you know, I definitely believe that that's a huge part of understanding a new or full moon is like know thyself and know how does this new or full moon impact me on a personal level, right? So we can talk about things on a collective level, but there's also this added energy of like, how is this impacting me personally? Because for some people, it may not be as big a deal as others, right? So especially if you do have energies at the end of Taurus, at the end of Aquarius, at the end of Scorpio, and at the end of Leo, right? All the fixed signs, especially within the last 10 degrees, if you have planets there or you know your angles, your ascendant, descendant, IC, midheaven, if you have energies there, it's going to be impacted by this new moon, and you will feel it. Okay. Especially if you are a moon in Taurus, if you are a moon in Scorpio, especially if your moon sign's involved as well. So this is what I was saying, like having a little bit too much Taurus energy, okay? Because you could say we have Jupiter just moved into Taurus, it's at 0 degrees, okay? We have the North Node, which moves backwards. The North and South Node are really weird and they go backwards. So the North Node's actually going back through these last couple degrees of Taurus, and it's actually going to go into Aries soon, okay? And so we have Jupiter there, we have North Node, we have Mercury there. We also have Uranus there. Uranus has been there for a while. Mercury's been there now for a good while, definitely not as long as Uranus, but Mercury's been chilling there for many weeks now because we went through a Mercury retrograde with Mercury in Taurus. Mercury is now direct, but it still has to catch up and go through all of the energy that it went back. It has to now go back, you know, it rewound, now it has to fast forward and go through all those degrees that it was going retrograde over. It has to go forward now. So it's still got a little bit of a ways to go before it goes into Gemini, where it loves to be in Gemini because that's one of its home signs. You know, Mercury really likes to be in Gemini and in Virgo, okay? So we have a lot of Taurus energy here. So this is like the energy is very fixed and it's like a lot of assessment. You know, Taurus also likes to look at value. It likes to kind of weigh things out before it takes kind of further investment, further action. So this is a lot of like waiting and planting seeds and kind of planning and plotting and just doing a lot of holding the energy, assessing the energy where it's at, but still putting energy into it for the future. But it's not necessarily an energy about fast movement like we would find with Aries or Gemini, okay? Now, we will be going into Gemini season, so that's going to shift it up a little bit. We're going to have, obviously, the moon's already moved into Gemini at the time I'm recording this, but we'll have the sun moving into Gemini within a couple days here. That will start to shift it a little bit, but we're still going to have Uranus, Mercury, North Node, and Jupiter all in Taurus. So there's still going to be quite a lot in Taurus here, for a bit. And Jupiter just moved into Taurus very recently, within the past week, okay? And it finished a cycle going through Aries, which was like a speed run through Aries. It basically moved into Aries at the very beginning of this year. And normally what happens is that Jupiter goes forward, okay, in a sign, and then it goes retrograde, and then typically close to the point at which it would go into a new sign, it goes retrograde and it goes back through the sign it just went through. Well, in this case, it's kind of weird because Jupiter actually does not go retrograde for quite a while, okay? So let me see if it is, yeah. So it's actually not until early September, that Jupiter goes retrograde. And this is pretty unusual because usually Jupiter does go retrograde around like mid-year, to be honest. So this means that we're basically getting no retrograde energy of Jupiter in Aries. So Jupiter in Aries is done, okay? It is done for effectively 12 years. So that means that Jupiter is actually going to go forward all the way through the summer in the Northern Hemisphere, obviously. I'm recording this in the US, so I'm kind of speak in terms of like Northern Hemisphere. But Jupiter is going to go through Taurus into the spring, finish through the spring, into the summer, and then as we are transitioning into fall, it's going to go retrograde. But by that point, it's already at, what did it say, 15 degrees? Yeah. So 15 degrees of Taurus. So it's about halfway through Taurus at that point. So even going retrograde, it's still not going to go back into Aries. Okay. Let's see if we can see. Where does Jupiter go direct? So Jupiter goes direct right around New Year's, and it's at 5 degrees of Taurus. Okay, so it's not going to go back into Aries. And this is pretty significant because it means that if you're going to be really affected by Jupiter Taurus, which would be any of the fixed signs, so Taurus, Aquarius, Leo, Scorpio, any planets in those signs, sun, moon, ascendant, all those energies, you'll be affected with Jupiter lingering much longer in Taurus. But even like the earth signs, like myself being a Virgo, will get like a prolonged trine. So if you have, Virgo or Capricorn energies, you'll get a prolonged trine, harmonious aspect to Jupiter moving through Taurus, which is pretty nice. And if you're a water sign, so Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces, or not Scorpio, because Scorpio would oppose, but if you have Cancer or Pisces energy in your chart, you'll get a sextile, which is another harmonious aspect. A little bit less strong than a trine, but still a nice harmonious aspect. Trines are 120 degrees, sextiles are 60 degrees, the aspects. So it's just really interesting to kind of think about Jupiter and what's happening there. Another part of it is that with Uranus and Taurus, we're going to have Jupiter, kind of going a lot of future things here, but we will have Jupiter in aspect to Uranus for various parts of this year, which is going to provide more of a push. Jupiter tends to expand or magnify or amplify the energies of whatever it's with, which sometimes is a great thing and sometimes is not a great thing, right? In this case, Jupiter, Uranus. So this is going to push out more inventions, okay? More Uranian things. This is more things around potentially, economics and money instability, things like that, but also people reinventing things around work. Certainly the topic around the use of AI plays into this story, but also Pluto and Aquarius is about that too. I don't want to go to too much of a tangent with that because right now it's way too far out of orb. Uranus is at 19 and Jupiter is just moved into Taurus, but it is something kind of interesting to think about that Jupiter is lingering in this fixed Earth sign for a significant portion of the rest of the year now, pretty much the rest of the year, right? So it's just kind of interesting to think about. So in this chart, so like I said, we have a big pileup of energy here in Taurus, and that's why I'm kind of like hovering in this spot. But we do have other things going on. We have Saturn at 6 degrees of Pisces, which is opposing my Venus and causing me a lot of hardship and difficulties in my life. I'm very frustrated with Saturn these days, but trying to do the best I can to work with it. But we have Saturn here at 6 degrees. This is actually trining over to Venus in Cancer, which is nice. So we have Saturn trine Venus, which is a nice aspect, but this is also leaving, right? So Venus is at 12, so they've already met up with each other in the trine, and then Venus is moving forward already. So that aspect is dissipating already. But it's a nice one where we have harmony between what it is that we're trying to learn karmically right now and being connected with our feelings. Cancer relates to our moods. It's related to mothering energy, the ocean, the tide. Well, technically the ocean would be Pisces and more of the tides would be Cancer, but also strongly linked to the moon. So Cancer, it's a lot about being in touch with our feelings, also our family, taking care of energy, self-care, self-nurturing, all of that good stuff. So this could be a time where, you know, with Venus having trine Saturn, it's really put a lot more emphasis on self-care, getting in touch with one's feelings. Certainly Saturn in Pisces, we're still at the beginning of this journey with this, but it's a lot about deconstructing and rebuilding our sense of compassion, forgiveness, boundaries, okay? This can be boundaries with other people or boundaries with oneself. And also, Pisces relates to, you know, it's ruled by Neptune, so it relates to imagination, creativity, building things in the subconscious realm is really what Saturn in Pisces is about. There's a lot of building and repair going on, but it's occurring at a very unseen level. So having Venus here trying that spot is quite nice because it's giving you added support from the water element to tap into your feelings and the emotional resources you have to do that work that Saturn in Pisces is trying to do. Now, with that being said, so that's a harmonious aspect there. We do have Mars here at the end of Cancer, and this is actually just having a moment. It's like I know my chart so well, so like I can read stuff and like know how it affects my chart simultaneously while trying to help people with other charts. But yeah, so Mars at the end of Cancer is right now squaring my ascendant in Libra and my descendant in Aries, and it's also squaring my natal Jupiter as well in Aries. So not the best thing. But anyways, so we have here Mars and it's getting ready to go into Leo. It's effectively like you can see it's at 29:26 is the minutes here. So it's literally just about to pop to go into Leo. Let's actually look at this on an ephemeris really quick. So sometimes I love an ephemeris. I cannot live without an ephemeris. Sometimes I will say it depends what planet you're talking about, but sometimes it can be like 1 or 2 days off. But these, I only work with the Swiss ephemeris timetables because they're very, very accurate. But where are we at? So we're at May 19th, and we can see here. Okay, so May 19th, and we can see as of this ephemeris, it's showing that Mars will move into Leo effectively on Sunday, so within a couple days. Over here, this might be telling me it's even earlier than that. So here it's saying May 20th. So effectively, sometime this weekend, May 20th to the 21st, we've got Mars moving into Leo. But to be honest, it's kind of a moot point because this aspect, I mean, certainly as it goes into the next sign, it's definitely going to change it up. But to be honest, this aspect is already in effect. This Mars opposed Pluto. It's just that it gets more pronounced, more precise as it becomes exact. And Mars opposed Pluto is a no joke kind of aspect, okay? There are certain aspects in astrology that I like to tell people are extra, extra, extra extra cautionary aspects. And Mars in connection to Pluto, Venus in connection to Pluto, and to an extent also Moon in connection to Pluto. All of these can be potentially destructive aspects in a very different way than like a Venus square Saturn or Venus opposed Saturn or even Moon square Saturn or Moon opposed Saturn, right? Because Saturn is difficult to work with, no doubt. It causes delays, blocks, obstacles, frustrations. It represents authority. It's the immovable obstacles. It does not budge until it's completed a certain cycle or it's gotten what it wanted to get from you in terms of learning or growth or hard work, whatever it might be. But at least Saturn is like somewhat workable, right? In that dynamic, it's a little bit more predictable in that regard because it rules like literally rules. So it's like a lot about following certain rules and getting certain results. Pluto relates to the underworld and the subconscious. So anytime that we have, especially Mars and Venus, because they relate to relationships quite heavily, and they're really important players in someone's personal chart because it relates to their drive, Mars, sex, all of that good stuff. Venus relates to our wants, our desires, relationships, but it's relationships with all things, our relationship with money, our relationship with other people. And whenever we have aspects to Pluto, what it can do with Mars and Venus when they interact with Pluto, whether that be a conjunction, an opposition, a square. I'm not talking about the more harmonious aspects, which would be like trine, sextile, etc. But when it's in a tough aspect to Pluto, what it's doing is actually unearthing some subconscious stuff that's there that you might not really be aware of because Pluto relates to like the subconscious. Now, arguably, I'm just going to switch to this one because having like extra ads is like bothering me. Arguably, having it come up to the surface is actually a really good thing because you can't heal something that you don't know exists, right? Like there's a reason that we do x-rays. So we have to be able to confront something and see it at a deep level in order to heal it. Like that's just the deal. You can't heal something unless it's brought up to the surface. And you have to be willing to do that. But sometimes this can be uncomfortable when you're in that kind of purging process where it is coming up to the surface because it feels like it's coming upon you and that you didn't sign up for it, right? And especially as it relates to like with Mars and Venus, this can involve other people. So this can be a lot of like people projecting like unconscious things onto one another. This can also relate to like power and control issues, manipulative issues, and kind of like what was coming through a little bit in the cards, like this kind of like gossipy, subversive energy where that there's like almost like a two-facedness, if there is such a word, to the situation where it's like there's more to the story here, So the advice I would give for this like Mars opposed Pluto vibe, because to be honest, this is going to linger, okay? So if we look at the ephemeris here, we could see that Mars goes into Leo. It does move to like 1 degrees within a couple days, but it's moving through for about a week. It's within like 0 to 4 degrees here. It actually will be right up on my midheaven. So that'll be interesting to see for me. And Pluto moves very, very slowly. So Pluto is very fixed at 0 degrees here, for that whole time. And moving onwards, it's actually retrograde and it's going to go back into Capricorn here as we get to mid-June. But I would say like, over the course of several days here, you might be feeling some of this energy where there's a little bit of like power struggles going on. Now you want to look at in your chart. Okay, so you want to look at in your chart, where is early Leo and where is early Aquarius? Because this is going to be a significant part of that story. So what house is that? Do you have any planets there? Do you have aspects to that area? Right? And it's really an energy about, with Mars in Leo, this is a lot about stepping into one's confidence, creativity, leadership energies. Leo is also an energy that relates to leadership, but from the heart. you know, so this is like heart-centered leadership. Pluto in Aquarius is doing a lot of deep work here on, and this is going to be a long aspect. Okay, we're talking like literally decades that Pluto is going to move through Aquarius. This is an aspect about unearthing deeper things of society, of technology that need to be deconstructed, okay, and sort of exposed in a type of way in order to be, it's sort of like an evolution of society in a way. But because Aquarius relates to technology and science, it's going to impact some of those areas like even more so. So this gets into topics like AI and the appropriate use of AI, the ethics of AI, like even the ethics of AI in the military. Like we're talking like deep, intense stuff that's has the capacity to affect a lot of people because Aquarius relates to like worldly energies and like larger groups of people. Okay. So I wouldn't be surprised if there is stuff with this Mars opposed Pluto where it's like there's a little bit more that's magnified about the appropriate use of power in society. Could be stuff kind of coming out in the news about this, but even just in your own chart, understanding the houses that are involved in this story and like where are the power struggles going on. And as these conflicts come up, saying, okay, I witness that this is like dark or unpleasant that this has come up, but what is this trying to teach me? What is this trying to get me to heal or to witness? Okay, because anytime we do have an aspect to Pluto, while deeply, deeply uncomfortable, it's also really, really important for us to confront what it is that Pluto wants to teach us, because Pluto is like the jackhammer of the zodiac. It will relentlessly push and push and push until you get to the bottom of whatever it is you want to get to the bottom of with that energy. I went through a transit for many years with Pluto squaring my moon, and it was really, really difficult. I mean, I wouldn't say it was many years. It was probably about 18 months, but if you've been under a Pluto transit, like 18 months with like Pluto with your moon, it's a lot. And it did cause me to confront some really, really deep things that I had previously tolerated in my life, and I didn't understand fully why they were as I knew they were bad, some of the things, but it really, really forced me to look at my emotional attachments and my emotional connection to some of these things and why I tolerated the things that I did and how to change my, I guess you could say, in a sense, tolerance level of what's acceptable moving forward to me in that life area. And whenever we work with Pluto transits, it's definitely an energy of like, once you've seen what Pluto wants you to see, like you don't go back. Like it literally changes you. You become a more evolved version of yourself moving forward, and then you proceed forward with that evolved version. So this is deep, deep stuff. So another part of it is like, give yourself some love, give yourself some flexibility with this process, because the stuff that gets unearthed that you might be confronting or needing to work through could be quite intense for you, you know, and you might need to kind of love yourself through that process. Okay. Fortunately, though, we don't have like an overlapping of Pluto aspects, because it's really Mars is the major one that's doing it. Venus is happily, you know, communicating with Saturn. We do have these energies going into early Gemini, which actually will trine over to Pluto, which will be a supportive aspect. So this could also be like if this stuff gets unearthed, you know, and this, I'm talking about some of this as it relates to society, but this can also be like you versus a group of people. That's another manifestation of this. You know, another analogy is like Leo is like the performer on the stage, and like Aquarius is like the audience in the seats. So it doesn't have to be completely like, you know, huge, huge groups of people, but it definitely does relate to this energy of like one versus the many. And um, as these energies move into early Gemini, right, in particular the sun moving into early Gemini and then later on Mercury, that will pick up on a trine to Aquarius because it's air and air. And that will be supportive because it will bring in more facts, more data, okay, more information. So you can use that as kind of a supportive tool. It's like, okay, well, maybe this group of people they're against me in some type of way, or like maybe I did misstep in this situation and I didn't do the right thing for the betterment of all these people, or whatever it might be that you're dealing with. Okay. Or, like I said, it goes both ways. So you could be the one that's in the wrong, or it could be that the group of people is unnecessarily attacking you. It can go either way. Using kind of like straight up facts and information, which Gemini is all about, can be really helpful here, where you kind of come at the situation with, well, these are the facts. This is the data. This is what it shows. That I think will help the story. Okay. And again, I will do an extended on this energy. I'll do an extended pick a card on this lunar cycle. So you will have the ability to purchase that from my Etsy shop and kind of go deeper with this. Okay. And you're always welcome to also leave a donation. My PayPal is linked in the description of this video, and that's much, much appreciated if you're able to leave a donation, because these videos, are never guaranteed. So the more that I can see that people are engaging in the channel, that they're subscribing, that they're commenting, that they're, enjoying the content and actively not just consuming it, but also being a part of the channel, like a community, the more that I can make space and time to make these videos for you guys. Okay. So I think that's where I want to leave this. There's of course always extra things I could talk about here. But I think that's kind of where I want to leave things with this. I will say too, so those of you that are curious about Mercury and it going direct and post shadow and all of that, we can take a quick peek at that. So Mercury is here. Okay, we are at, what did I say, May 19th. So Mercury is at 6 degrees of Taurus, which is actually in a very nice sextile to Saturn right now, which is pretty cool. But that will move quickly because Mercury moves pretty fast. So we can see here that it's still in Taurus for effectively definitely the rest of May. Okay, so at the end of May, we're at 14 degrees of Taurus. It's beginning to pick up on a conjunction to Uranus. At that point, Uranus would be at, where are we at? Uranus would be at, looks like it gets up to 20 degrees at that point. So, that's like a 6-degree orb, 14 to 20. So, beginning to pick up on a conjunction to Uranus at the very, very end of May. But really, it's June that we start to see that. Okay, so we could see here that it's at 15 degrees of Taurus and Uranus is at 20 here. And then Mercury continues to go. So we actually have the exact Mercury-Uranus conjunction right here around June 5th, June 6th, which I believe is actually close to, yeah, so the full moon in Sag here. Oh, that will be conjunct my Saturn. Let's see what happens with that. Conjunct my Saturn within 1-degree orb. Thank you very much. Yeah, so that's going to be quite interesting because we'll have Mercury conjunct Uranus. So there could be like unexpected communication that occurs around that time. And, full moon in Sag, so it's totally different chart, new cycle. I'm not going to go over that right now, but that might be a good day to kind of bookmark on your calendars. Okay, is this date around June 5th here. And actually it will be a building aspect. So you'll feel that like up to 2, 3, even 4 days leading up to it. But Mercury conjunct Uranus can be a really nice one for getting breakthroughs. Okay, really can be a fun aspect. But we will have, so Mercury conjunct Uranus. Now, if we look at when Mercury went retrograde, so let's see. Mercury went retrograde here at 15 degrees of Taurus, okay, on April 21st, right when the sun entered Taurus. So that means in order to clear post shadow, it has to get past 15 degrees of Taurus. So it looks like we're going to kind of get to that point as we get to the end of May. So effectively, as we get to the beginning of June, we are in new territory with Mercury in Taurus. It's cleared, not only as a direct, but I think hopefully most of you have learned by now, if you're kind of more regular to my astrology teachings, that you know, we have the actual retrograde phase, but there's a pre-shadow phase and there's a post-shadow phase. So it does take time for Mercury to catch up with where it retrograded back from and clear through. So it looks like the end of May is kind of clearing out of that energy. And as we get to June, early June, we get into some really nice fresh energy with Mercury. And then we even get kind of some like awakening epiphany vibes around the time of the next lunar cycle at the full moon in Sag. And in general, you know, full moon in Sag, I mean, I cringed because my Saturn is there and like, yeah. But in general, full moon in Sag is a really happy moon. The moon really enjoys to be in Sag because it leans towards being very optimistic and hopeful and positive. But yeah, so I think that's going to be kind of an interesting time as we go into June, Mercury being at a post shadow, the full moon in Sag. There could be like some renewed hope and faith and optimism that comes through around that time. So it will be interesting to see how that plays out. So with all that being said, I'm going to wrap up this video here. Please make sure that you've given this video a like, subscribe to this channel if you haven't done so already. I'm kind of still feeling out coming back from my hiatus and how I'm going to be pacing out these, or I already know I'm pacing out the videos new and full moons because that's how I did it before and I really enjoy that, but more so the type of content I'm doing the videos. And right now I'm playing around with alternating between cards and astro, but my goal is to always have like a component that will be an additional component that you can purchase for sale, which will give you some extra things that you can dive into. So for this one, I'm going to, I've kind of given you the astro version for the public, and I'm going to do a pick a card version that will be the purchasable, that is a word, option on my Etsy shop. Also, like I said, if you want to get notified very quickly when these videos go up, you can hit the notification bell, and you can also subscribe to my email newsletter where I'll also put the videos, you know, kind of like news, if a news alert. I can't talk at this point. I will notify, that's a good word, notify you via the email newsletter when the video goes live that way too, so you can sign up there. And yeah, and I'm just kind of still feeling it out about how I'm kind of structuring the different types of content I'm doing. But the more that people can show me that they're engaging and supporting the channel, and the more that I'll be able to devote time and energy to producing these videos. So please show your support, subscribe, like, comment, leave a donation if you can, check out the extended reading, which will be in the description, all of that good stuff, and stay tuned for some updates coming with my Patreon as well. Much love.